And it's my great pleasure now to introduce you to a superstar in the world of classical music, French countertenor Philippe Jaroussky. Beautiful, isn't it? That's an aria from Vivaldi, sung by the world-famous countertenor Philippe Jaroussky. And the man behind the voice joins me now in the breakfast studio. I'm happy to say he's in Australia to perform with the Brandenburg Orchestra, although he's breaking into a sabbatical year to do so. A year off when, in his own words, he says he wants to have fun with parties, friends, to smoke and to drink. Philippe Jaroussky, welcome to RN Breakfast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Smoking, drinking, having a lot of fun. How's the sabbatical going?
Yeah, very good actually. Now I have to stop a little bit because I have to train again for the concerts are starting next week. But I'm very happy to have done this break already of 2 months without singing.
Is that hard in a profession like yours to take time off? I'm not sure if you're really smoking and drinking. Maybe you are.
No,
but to take time off and then get back into ready to perform?
Yes, because these last years were quite very busy. And it's true that if you are performing a lot, you have traveling a lot, you have to care of your voice all the time. And sometimes it could be a little bit tiring. That's why I choose to make this small break now.
It's an extraordinary voice, an extraordinary thing for a man to do, to sing at that level. Some years ago, I used to do some singing. Countertenors were very rare then, very hard to find in a choir. But nowadays, the countertenor has made a bit of a comeback.
Yes, you're right. Actually, there are more and more countertenors in the world. And I think it's changing the idea that we have of this voice too, because actually we have a lot of different voices now. Mezzo-soprano, high countertenor voices, lower voices.
So there's a range even within the countertenors?
Yes, actually it's like a woman, or like women. We have very different voices, and more and more young singers are starting to really work deeply this range.
Is it hard for a man to find that range in himself? And can it be damaging for the vocal cords?
Actually, I think if you are a countertenor, you know quite quickly. I think for me it was always much easier to sing with this voice than with the other voice, like baritone voice or tenor voice. And then actually I was attracted quite young to sing with this voice. And of course you have to like the repertoire, because you have to sing most of the time the repertoire of the castrati. And this is maybe the most challenging part to be a countertenor, because these arias are quite oftenly very, very difficult.
Of the castrati used to sing.
The castrati arias, yeah.
Talking about the castrati of the 18th century was the famous period of Farinelli and Carestini.
Course, yeah.
They were both excellent singers,
yes.
But they had quite a rivalry, and the rivalry also between the composers that wrote for them, Handel and Porpora.
Yes.
Tell us about these duels between these two.
That's what I propose in this program for the next concerts here in Australia, is to speak about this rivalry. Most of the castrati, they were coming from very poor families. And that was a big revenge for them most of the time to have this huge career in opera. But
we should explain they could sing high because they actually were castrated, yeah?
Yes, at the beginning it was just to keep the children voice, the treble voice. And then finally they just discovered that we are thinking that it was a very feminine voice, but it was more than this, because they had big chests and they could not breathe for 1, 2, 3 minutes, and they had very brilliant and strong voices. It's like something not very human, and that's why people, they love this, because they had capacities that really us now human beings, normal human beings, we cannot have. But of course, maybe now as a countertenor, sometimes I have to lie a little bit. I have to breathe sometimes a little bit. But I think the audience, they love this repertoire because, of course, it's so challenging for us. And then they can feel that during concerts particularly. And then they are very excited by this.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that you do breathe, Philippe. That's good. We are lucky to have you here in Australia, and we are lucky to have you singing at all because you were trained as a violinist. You didn't really discover your countertenor voice till you were 18, and then your singing teacher said she didn't think you'd ever make it as a countertenor.
Yes, it's true. I came to a concert of a countertenor at 18 years old, and I say, that's what I want to do. But that was a big revelation for me. I never thought that I would be on stage all the time in Australia, in Japan, in America, in Europe, and that's maybe the most incredible gift of my life.
And you're, as I say, you're here singing with the Brandenburg, and this is the third time you've performed with. What is it? What's the relationship you have with the Brandenburg Orchestra?
First time was 6 years ago. That was my first time ever in Australia. And I was very surprised, first about the level of the orchestra, that Paul really did an amazing job. Because, you know, in Europe, sometimes we think we are the best to interpret Baroque music. And I was so impressed by the level of the orchestra, playing Handel, Vivaldi so well. And then I like also the way that Paul Dyer is working. He's very open-minded, and I can say everything I want, and we have a very close relationship now about music.
Well, that's lucky for us. And I loved it when I read that you love being a countertenor, not to imitate being a woman, but more to stay young, to stay a child.
Yes, actually, yes.
Philippe, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.